Today, we're going to be diving into the exciting world of passive and semi-passive income streams. We're going to be exploring 4 various types of income opportunities that can start you down the road to building wealth within 15 minutes of this video ending. So grab a pen and paper and let's get started. In the event you're anything like I am, you always want to work less and make more. I'm correct, aren't I? Now, what I'm talking about is not you working for money. I'm talking about you putting your money to work for you. Okay, before we jump into these income streams, there's a couple of things we got to understand. We've got to understand what an accredited investor is and what a non-accredited investor is, which most of the time means a higher investment, higher returns, and a much more complex investment. Accredited investors have a higher income and a higher net worth requirement. It also gives them access to higher returns. Accredited investors are investors that individuals have made over $200,000 the last couple of years, and that's what they're projected to at least make over the next few years. As a couple, it's $300,000 for the last couple of years, projected for the next few years. You also have a minimum of a $1 million net worth requirement, excluding your primary residence, because that's normally where Americans have most of their net worth tied up in, is their home. For accredited investors, that $1 million net worth is the minimum. There's times when the accredited investors have to have into the tens of millions to be able to qualify to get into an investment. Non-accredited investor is pretty much everybody else. Even though you might be a non-accredited investor for the time being, because that's the direction you are headed, correct? What you want to keep in mind is you're going to be talking to different people about different investments, different qualifications, and they're going to ask you, are you an accredited investor? The answer is always yes. Why would I say yes when I'm not an accredited investor yet? Simple. You're on your way to becoming one. It will also give you access to documents and investments to look at that you wouldn't normally get the opportunity to look at. Now, just because you're not an accredited investor, there are still plenty of opportunities out there for non-accredited investors. Yes, there are opportunities out there for non-accredited investors, and the threshold to get into them can be a lot less than for an accredited investor. Now, the returns are a little smaller, although it's still the concept, it's still the idea that you're looking for. So now, knowing the difference between an accredited investor and a non-accredited investor gives you the opportunity to know exactly where you stand and how you can look at different opportunities. So we're going to be looking at a bunch of different opportunities, some for accredited investors, some for non-accredited investors. I'll let you know which ones are for accredited investors only, and then everything else is up for grabs. As I just said, as a non-accredited investor, you say yes to everything. You're an accredited investor. You make a couple of $100,000. You've got a $2 million net worth. You've got $500,000 in the bank. You want to look at every opportunity you can. Okay, the only way to gain knowledge is to look at the different investments out there. You want to act like you want to become an accredited investor. You need to know the lingo. You need to know what they talk about. You need to know what the investments look like. That's why you always say yes. To become one of the rich and wealthy, you need to do what they do, which is look at every opportunity that comes their way. Let's get into some high yield savings accounts that show you how you can make $400 to $500 a year in residual income and passive income. We're going to take a look at some screenshots of some high yield savings accounts that can generate anywhere from $400 to $500 in passive income. Now, these accounts can be set up within 10 minutes of the end of this video, and you can start making passive income right now. Here's an example of how putting $10,000 or even $1,000 into an account after 1 year, 12 months, the account will have grown into a $10,435 or more with monthly compounding. At the end of the second year, with adding no additional funds, the account will have grown to approximately $10,888.92. And then the third year, it's going to grow to over $11,000. Now, when you look at this table, you can see that in the first year, it's $10,435. In the second year at 4.35%, it's $10,888. In the third year at 4.35%, it's $11,362. Now, let's say we take those 3 years and we did them at 5%. In the end of the third year, you would have $11,576. Now, at the end of the third year with 5.15%, you would have $11,625. Okay, now with that in mind, that they don't have any of this stuff and you can do it online, guess what? You can open this account within 10 to 15 minutes of this video ending, and you can start today to get that return and to get that passive income. What I hear a lot about is people buying stocks, selling stocks, holding stocks, buying options, and the occasional buying a stock with a dividend. When you invest in stocks that have dividends, you're actually receiving profits from the company on a quarterly or monthly basis, sometimes every 6 months, once a year. Now, here's the exciting part of stocks with dividends, and it's just only specific stocks. What I rarely hear talked about is a thing called a dividend reinvestment program, otherwise known as a DRIP program, DRIP. What this program does is it takes those little returns that you're going to get off the dividends, the company just turns around and buys more stock. Over time, you didn't get the dividend, what you got was more stocks. By getting more stocks, what you're able to do is basically supercharge your investment. You put no more money into it, yet your portfolio continues to grow because more stocks are added, more dividends are added, and the numbers keep getting bigger. Okay, the reason I would only look for dividends or dividend reinvestment programs is relatively simple. When you don't have that, all you can do is buy the stock and it goes up. You have no access to funds or cash flow. There's only 2 ways you can get access to it. One, you sell it, which means you give up any future income or future profits, future appreciation in that stock. Number 2 is in the event you have enough, you can use it as collateral to get a loan. You got a couple of $100,000, they might give you $75,000 to $100,000, a bank or somebody like that, simply because they want to protect their downside. So because they're looking to protect their downside, you're having to pay for a loan and for interest on something you already own that has no income to you. Now, when you're looking for companies that have dividends, that pay dividends, look for companies that have a track record. Companies only been around 2, 3, 4 years. They might be paying high dividends now. Odds are they're going to go down. When you find a company that's 50, 75, 100 years old, and they've been paying dividends every year, every quarter, that's something you want to look at. How does a dividend reinvestment program work? In the description below, I'm going to have a PDF file that you can access, you can download, and it will give you a very overview, very big view, broad view of how a dividend reinvestment program works. Okay, here's a list of 7 companies that have dividend reinvestment DRIP programs. It's just a small list, gives you an idea of who has them. It has the investor relations link there that you can go look at, go to their website. You can see what they do and how they talk to their investors and what their investors say. You can look up their history. Now, this is just a small sampling. What you can do is go to Google and just type in companies that have dividend reinvestment programs. It could be less than $5, it could be less than $10, over $50, less than $100. You can put the number in and Google will kick you back all the companies that have dividend reinvestment programs within the category and within the parameters that you use. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to discuss real estate investment trusts, also known as REITs, R-E-I-T-S. These real estate investment trusts allow investors to pool their money so that they can purchase real estate or purchase shares in real estate without actually purchasing the property. Ground floor, it's a semi-passive investment. What I do is I have to go in every single month, and what I do is I choose which properties I want to invest in. You can do it automatically, or you can go in and do it yourself. You also have to be very aware of what's going on in the market. I started about 9 months ago. I have my 11.7% return, although what I've done is I've stopped rolling money over at the moment because rates have shot up, the market has slowed down, and things are slowing down everywhere across the board. And I want to make sure I get my investments back before I do anything else. Remember, anytime you're doing an investment, there's an element of risk. So always be aware of how much you've got hung out there and how risky things are. Now, in a couple seconds, I'm going to show you a list of companies. Each one of these companies is either for accredited or non-accredited investors, and they all have the ability to invest in single properties. You can invest in notes, you can invest in multi-unit properties, you can also invest in commercial properties. First list I'm going to show you is for accredited investors only. You may want to pause the video, take a screenshot, or just kind of write them all down. Okay, now here's a list for accredited and non-accredited investors. You may want to pause the screen, take a screenshot, or write it down. Okay, now like with any investment, never risk more than you can afford to lose. Don't overextend yourself. While the upside always looks fantastic, they always paint the best picture they can to get people to invest. Always be planning for the downside. Okay, so like I said before, don't get caught up in the hype. They're going to try to paint as rosy a picture as they can. That's their job. So always keep in mind that when things are going good, life looks fantastic, that's when you plan for things to go south. Or at least put yourself in a position that the downside will not be that bad. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for today. What did we learn today? Accredited investors, non-accredited investors, high yield savings account, the power of compounding interest. We've also learned about a dividend reinvestment program, how you can supercharge your stock portfolio and have it grow just simply because of the dividends that are buying more stocks. We've also learned about real estate investment trusts, crowdfunding, how there's accredited investors and then non-accredited investors that can both invest in real estate without actually having to buy a single property. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for today. On the next video, we're going to cover 3, maybe 4 more passive or semi-passive income streams. Look forward to seeing you there.